You ought to straighten out your press, because you know what?
Mr.
A
President,
country can never be great with a dishonest press.
We traveled all the way to Wisconsin for this interview.
President Trump had a contentious interview with Kristen Welker on Meet the Press. Not only did they talk about Trump's pretty disastrous foreign policy, where he managed to contradict himself again and again, they also talked about rigged elections. Now, the interview started to break down when Welker asked Trump about the $1.8 billion anti-weaponization slush fund that it appears he's now backing off of because of Republican opposition. In fact, Republican opposition basically stopped that project in its tracks. And it might be one of the few things that I'm going to give Republican Congress people some credit on, because it was a $1.8 billion slush fund to be funded by American taxpayers. And there was going to be no transparency in who would get awarded that money. It was supposed to benefit people who were victims of the Biden administration's lawfare, including, January 6 people. But nonetheless, that slush fund doesn't appear to be happening. Then the wheels really started to come off during this interview when Trump got into his usual complaints about the 2020 election. I can't believe he's still getting into it, but he does. And then Trump also stated that California's elections are rigged. Now, look, before I continue, I need to give you my spiel about California and how we conduct our elections. The way we conduct our elections is a joke. It should not take weeks to figure out who won in our state and local elections, or even, when we do the count for the presidential elections. Like, it takes much longer in California compared to other states. Why are we so incompetent here in California? Because here's the thing, when it takes this long to tally the votes, can you really blame people for wondering if the election is rigged in some way? So I'm going to explain to you why it gives the appearance of rigging in just a moment. Do I think that there's evidence of rigging? I don't, but I do think that taking this long to tally the votes, I do think the way we carry out our mail-in ballots, and I'm not against mail-in ballots, but I think the way we count the mail-in ballots, or the deadline for the mail-in ballots, how that delays the final results of the election is a problem. And so I actually do sympathize with people who are very upset, including Republicans across the country who are like, I don't know, is that mayoral race in California rigged? I do not believe it's rigged, but I do think that the way we do things here in California is ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. We're supposed to be the wealthiest state in the country. What is this? Anyway, now Trump states that California's state elections are rigged without any evidence. And for context, voting closed last Tuesday, and California is still working on counting the ballots, believe it or not. So the Los Angeles mayoral candidate, who you might be familiar with, Spencer Pratt, former reality star, he's the most right wing of the leading candidates. The others include incumbent mayoral candidate Karen Bass, who has been disastrous. And then the other challenger is Nithya Raman, a current city council member who is even more disastrous than Karen Bass. Yeah, I said it. I live in her district. I'm not interested in hearing anyone from Brooklyn tell me she's amazing. She's not amazing, okay? Under her leadership, the same corner in my neighborhood has seen endless drug overdose deaths. This woman lives in a freaking ivory tower, giant mansion in Hollywood with her TV writer husband, and has the gated, by the way, lots of security, and then has the audacity to tell Angelenos that we don't need cops. She's a joke. She's a joke. But hey, since she's the most far left, we're just going to assume that she's a better candidate. All the candidates, not my favorite. I would rather have Karen Bass reelected than have Nithya Raman. Nithya Raman needs to go. That's my view of Nithya Raman. Total disaster. And I do not like Karen Bass. So this gives you a sense of how much I've loathed Nithya Raman's leadership here in the district she represents, the district I live in. And if you're an Angelino living in Beverly Hills or West Hollywood and you're not a victim of her leadership, I'd like you to shut up. But anyway, let's keep going. So basically what ended up happening was, after the election day, it appeared that Spencer Pratt was going to have a face-off with Karen Bass, right? So Karen Bass had the most votes. It looked like Spencer Pratt had the second most votes. Since it didn't look like Karen Bass was going to get 50% of the votes or higher, there's going to be a runoff between the two best performing candidates, right? It looked like it was going to be Spencer Pratt and Karen Bass, but as they were reading or counting more and more of the ballots, it turns out that Nithya Raman pulled ahead, and now Pratt is stating that the election was rigged, and Trump is echoing those claims. I again do not believe the election was rigged. We live in a very, very blue part of the country, and people here are not as engaged in politics as I wish they were. And so they vote based on party lines. They see Republican, they vote against it. So I'm not surprised by these results as they're kind of developing, as news is developing about the results. All that aside, let's watch Trump crash out about this.
The election was rigged. It was a dirty election. And it's happening again right now in California.
Presented evidence.
It's happening right now in California. Right now, it's look at what's happening in California.
To that?
It's
the
4
Republicans
days.
are doing well in
California. No, they're not. They're dropping fast because it's a rigged election.
But you've never presented evidence that it was rigged. Let's keep talking about. I want to talk about Todd.
You have more evidence. There's more evidence than ever presented.
Let's talk about
your elections in this country. We're like a third world country. Your elections are crooked, and you're crooked, and Meet the Press is crooked, and so is ABC and CBS and CNN.
But Mr. President,
you're one-sided crooked networks. Right, let's call it quits because I've had enough. Thank you, darling. Have a good time.
Mr. President, let's please. I traveled all the way to Wisconsin.
I've sat in the rain with you.
I know.
I've sat in the rain with you for an hour, on and off in the rain, and I've given you enough time. You ought to straighten out your press because you know what?
Mr. President,
a country can never be great with a dishonest press.
We traveled all the way to Wisconsin for this interview.
I mean, that's so embarrassing. That's so embarrassing. You're supposed to be the most powerful person in the world, and you can't handle a few mildly tough questions from Kristen Welker? Really?
The other night, I was scrolling through Shop TYT when I saw our awesome No Money for Wars hat and thought, I need that. I click add to cart, ready to dig out my wallet, but it's on the other side of the room. But right there in checkout, glowing like a beacon, is that glorious purple Shop Pay button. One tap and boom, order placed. That's the magic of Shopify, the platform behind millions of businesses and 10% of US e-commerce, including our own Shop TYT. That purple Shop Pay button is the best converting checkout on the planet. It means fewer abandoned carts and more actual sales. And if you run a business, Shopify makes it super simple to build a beautiful site with hundreds of templates and to blast email and social campaigns wherever your customers are scrolling. It's like having a full marketing team behind you. So do what we did. Use Shopify. See fewer carts go abandoned and more sales go with Shopify and their Shop Pay button. Sign up for your $1 per month trial today at shopify.com/TYT. Go to shopify.com/TYT. That's shopify.com/TYT.
And like, she's right. You don't have evidence that the election was rigged. You don't like the results of the election. I get it. I don't like the way our, ballots are counted here in California. I think it takes way too long to know what the results are. So when the results on the night of election day make it appear as though there's going to be a runoff between incumbent Karen Bass and Spencer Pratt, and then a day later you see Nithya Raman pull ahead and basically kick Spencer Pratt out of the chances of a runoff race, people start asking questions, and it's okay to ask those questions. But if you're going to claim, if you're going to declare that it's a rigged election, you have to provide some evidence of that. So this morning, CNN's Harry Anton responded to the claims of voter fraud, and he argued that if the Democratic establishment really wanted to rig the election, they would have been rigging it in favor of Spencer Pratt. Obviously. So let's hear his argument. I'll fill in the blanks.
This is the dumbest conspiracy theory I have ever heard, because the Democratic establishment and Karen Bass wanted Spencer Pratt in the runoff. They don't want any part to do with Nithya Raman. Why is that? Because just take a look here. Okay, mayor runoff polls, Bass versus opponent versus Pratt. Bass would have crushed Pratt by 18 points. That's what the polling showed. Look at how she does against Nithya Raman, on the other hand. Raman is ahead by 4 points. Bass has a real race on her hand if, in fact, Raman is the one who advances. And, of course, the Democratic establishment is backing Karen Bass. But versus Spencer Pratt, she was crushing him. Raman is actually decently liked by LA City voters. Look at this. Okay, Nithya Raman, +5 on the net favorability rating. Karen Bass, way underwater at -22 points. You basically just need someone who's half decently well-liked to be favored, or at least have a real shot against the incumbent Karen Bass. Spencer Pratt, on the other hand, look at that. He's even less liked than Karen Bass. He's 32 points underwater.
Harry Enton's argument is a strong one. That being said, it depresses me to no end, because people are upset with Karen Bass for legitimate reasons in the entirety of LA County. Now, she is the mayor of LA City, but if you live in LA County, you know what Karen Bass's leadership looks like, and it ain't great. The way she handled the fires in the Pacific Palisades was a disaster, and she was caught lying multiple times. That being said, I still think she'd be better than Nithya Raman, but since Nithya Raman doesn't have as much of a stank from all voters in LA City, because not everyone in LA City has been represented by her as a city council member, they have no idea. They have no idea how she basically is Karen Bass on steroids, but they're about to find out if she wins. So no hope in LA. I'm just keeping it 100. No hope. This woman has a super adversarial relationship with anyone who just wants to feel safe in their own city. So congratulations, LA. It looks like Nithya Raman is likely to win, and I'm not happy about it, but it is what it is. I'd rather have Karen Bass reelected than have Nithya Raman elected.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.